So Palworlds has been out for quite some time now. The game originally came out at the start of this year in January, and it was available for PC and I believe on Xbox as well with Game Pass. And now the game is finally available on PlayStation 5. And I'm going to say this right now before I get started with the topic of today's video. I have been addicted to Palworlds for the last, I believe, 5 days since I got this game. And I gotta say, like, I am so glad I was able to finally get my hands on this game and play it. I have been having just an absolute blast playing Palworlds for the last 5 days. And like I said already, the game just came out to PlayStation, and since then, I just been having a lot of fun. So if we take a quick look at the PlayStation digital stores, basically for those of you who were not aware, Palworlds just came out last month on September 24th, and the game is available for $30, which is a very reasonable price from these indie developers. Now keep this in mind, this is a game made by a smaller company called Pocket Pair. For those of you who do not know or were not aware, I definitely talked about this game a couple times on the channel at the start of this year, and I'm finally glad I was able to get my hands on this game and just play it and actually just finally get my, I guess, first impressions on everything. And now that I got some time into the game, I can let you all know how I feel about the game so far. So obviously, this game is still in early access, so there are going to obviously be a bunch of issues, whether it be through game bugs and obviously game crashes and all that stuff. But so far, at least from my personal experience, I haven't ran into any like game breaking crashes as of yet so far. So the game has been holding up very well in terms of performance, which is very good. But however, there are obviously a lot of bugs in this game. Normally, I get very upset and mad about these kind of bugs being in these kind of video games. But for some reason, I feel like some of the bugs, now keyword, I said some of the bugs in this game, is what helps makes Pal World so fun and hilarious at the same time. Now, like I said, there are some bugs in this game. I haven't really encountered that many game breaking bugs. I think the only one that I really encountered was when I was trying to I don't want to say log off, but when I was trying to quit the game from the in-game menu. I didn't go back to the PlayStation menu or anything like that. I just tried to quit the game normally and try to play on a different world file, but for some reason the game wouldn't properly end and I would just be stuck there and my character wouldn't be doing anything. So, as far as I'm aware, just trying to quit the game and trying to load up a different world, that's like the only real issue I've encountered so far in terms of like game breaking issues. But other than that, I mean, I ran into a couple of bugs, but they were just pretty hilarious and all that. And yes, there are some bugs where enemies do sometimes get stuck within the environment. But other than that, at least from what I can think of off the top of my head, and at least from what I played so far, that those are really like the only gripes and the only problems I really had with this game. Other than that, there that's pretty much it for all like the negatives I can really think of. So now I want to talk about the positives. So the first biggest positive I just want to say is obviously the pals. So there's a nice handful of pals and there's a nice variety of pals as well. I do enjoy some of the pals in this game. Some of them actually look really damn cute. Some of them look really damn badass. And some of them look really, really awesome. I mean, there was this one pal that I was able to catch, and it was like a panda looking pal. And if you give him a certain, I think it's like a pal set gear, that gives him like two grenade launchers, and it just completely he just blows up the entire area. So the clip I just showed you is just one of the possible things you can do in this game. Just b- using a panda or some other pal that you have to just completely obliterate a mini boss, or to help you just destroy a bunch of resources, like a bunch of trees together or some ore veins that are clumped together. They can definitely help you clear the area and help you get a lot of resources so much quicker in this game. So if, let's say, if you're in the middle of, let's say, a farming route where you're trying to chop down trees or trying to mine a bunch of ores, and your pickaxe or your wood chopping axe breaks, you can use your pals to help you break down those trees and use their abilities, basically. And of course, you do need to mount the pals if you want to do it manually, obviously, like I showed you in the clip. Because if you want to do it automatically, then you're going to have to assign a pal at your base, and you're going to have them do some of that stuff. Which brings me to my next point: the base building in this game. Once you get a base set up, you can literally link your pals that you have captured, and you can put them to work, and they can help you build a lot of things that can help you progress through the game. They can help you build basically your crafting stations, power generators to help you get certain things running in your base. It's just awesome. And of course, you can also set like the work conditions as well for these pals. So you can do it on like relaxed, where everything is not stressful. You can set it to normal working conditions. You can set it to like hard working conditions, or cruel, or maybe even brutal working conditions, even where everyone just gets overwhelmed over work and they just get sad and depressed. And of course, they do work much harder and faster depending on the work conditions you set for your pals back at your home base. I love the idea of making a base with your pals, and they basically are more than just helpers back in your base. But when you're out roaming in the wild as well, not only can they be a massive help in battle, but they can also be a massive part of your kit. You can use the pals to help you battle, like in one of the clips I showed you earlier. You can use the pals to help you traverse the environment. You can basically use them as ground transport. You can use them as like sea transport, where you travel by sea, or like aerial transport, where you can just fly in the air with one of your pals, even. But where I think this game also does another good job at is just the core gameplay itself. This game is a survival game, and there are some other inspirations that this game sees as well, and they took from. Obviously, this game is Pokemon with guns, as everybody calls it, which I can totally see, but there's some other inspirations too. That's also heavily inspired from Breath of the Wild, where you have a glider and you can just traverse down certain areas faster if you want. And speaking of which, this leads me to my next point: some of the things you can craft in this game. One of my favorite items in the game so far is the grapple gun, because that can help you reach certain ledges that you can't reach. You can upgrade the grapple gun so you can get to farther ledges than you couldn't before. You can also craft powerful weapons at certain workbenches, like guns, obviously. You can craft better armor so you can survive in certain environments, like the volcano environment, and you can craft certain gear to let you survive in colder environments. And of course, there are pals that can help you within the environment too, if you don't have the proper gear. So let's just say if you do not have a set of fire equipment equipped that gives you heat resistance, if you have a pal that's, I believe, an ice pal, that can help you cool off in the hotter temperatures so you can traverse the environment without needing that piece of gear. Or if you're in the cold environment, if you don't have any gear with cold resistance, if you have a fire-based pal, you can traverse the cold environment, and because those pals give off a aura of heat and cold that keeps you warm or cold depending on what environment you go in. But of course, you do need to keep those pals on you because if you don't have the proper gear or the proper pals, you're going to obviously take damage from the environment from being either too hot or too cold. Now, there is one more thing I do want to talk about for this game, and I didn't really expect this one to be a thing, but you can actually, believe it or not, you can actually encounter random PAL trainers in the wild, and you can have an actual like Pokemon battle with them if you want with your pals. Like you can have an actual PAL battle. So like trainer versus trainer, and you can face them and their pal, and you don't just defeat them, you actually fight them to the death. And basically, it's the last person standing wins the battle, which I think is amazing. I did not think that this would be a thing that you could do in Palworlds, which is absolutely amazing. And yes, the battles are actually pretty fun too, if I'm gonna be completely honest. Speaking of battles, like you can even go to these giant towers and you can take on these really powerful trainers. And they basically act as like some kind of raid boss where you can fight by yourself or you can team up with other people. And of course, it gets much harder as you progress through the game, but it's still a lot of fun. I cannot actually believe just how much content is in this game. And keep this in mind, this is still in early access. Like, this game is still in alpha, believe it or not. And with all the stuff you can do in this game, I'm just mind blown. And I'm so glad I was able to get my hands on Palworld finally and just play it. I haven't had this much fun with a video game in such a long time since like Castle Crashers back on the Xbox 360. And that was like a couple console generations ago. I haven't had this much fun and I haven't been addicted to a fun video game like this since Castle Crashers. And that's really fucking saying something in my book. Like that is like nearly impossible to beat on my scale. Like Castle Crashers, don't get me wrong, it's a legendary game, and Pal Worlds is definitely starting to climb up there with just how great the game is. Obviously, the game needs to iron out a lot of these problems as well if it wants to be that masterpiece of a game. It's a phenomenal game, and I'm just so glad I'm able to find and play a game that's just as fun. Now, there is one more thing I do want to discuss before I end this video, and that's surrounding Pocket Pair and Nintendo. Now, I have made a video talking about this already, where Nintendo is suing Pocket Pair because Nintendo, in a nutshell, they basically feel threatened by Pocket Pair, the developers of Palworlds. It just seems like Nintendo and the Pokemon Company are just jealous of Palworld's success. I almost said Pokemon by accident, but Nintendo is just jealous of Pocket Pair because they made a game that's better than Pokemon. And I know I'm going to trigger some Pokemon fans and they're going to come rushing to the game's defense and Nintendo's defense and they're going to try to tell me, Nightwing, you're being stupid, bro. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, they sold over 10 million copies and it was one of Nintendo's best-selling games ever, bro. Last time I checked, Palworlds has sold over 19 million copies in over a matter of months. Keep this in mind. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, yes, you are right. They sold over at least 10 million copies, and it was Nintendo's best-selling Pokemon game, but it was also their worst Pokemon game of all time. And I made several videos trash talking Pokemon Scarlet and Violet and talking about the controversies back then. But however, with games like Palworlds, they basically doubled the sales of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. That is absolutely mind blowing. The fact that an indie developer company can make a creature catchy game look this good and play this good, and the fact that a AAA company can't even pull this off, that's just sad. But also at the same time, it's amazing because indie developers in today's dark ages of modern gaming are putting AAA companies to shame. How else do you think games like Helldivers 2 popped off? I mean, that game is phenomenal still to this day. Palworlds, still a phenomenal game. Now, before I end off this video, I do want to say this. Hey, Nintendo, instead of wasting your resources on cease and desist letters and lawsuits, why don't you actually reallocate those resources into developing better fucking video games? Because as of now, things are looking very rough for you. So, like I said, instead of wasting your resources on basically, I don't want to say attacking because that's a very strong word. I guess targeting is the better word. Instead of targeting fan made projects and indie developers, like I've said, how about you reallocate those resources into developing better fucking video games? Because if you developed better video games instead of going after people with lawsuits, then maybe you wouldn't be in this situation. But unfortunately, this is the state that we are all living in right now. Nintendo is lacking in the Pokemon department, and of course, it's up to an indie developer to outshine Nintendo in what Nintendo has always done. So, I hate to tell you this, but like it or not, and believe it or not, Palworlds and Pocket Pair, they have easily put Nintendo, the Pokemon Company, and they put Pokemon Scarlet and Violet to shame. So, with this being said, thank you everyone for watching and for listening. And until next time, I'm talking about Palworlds, and I think I'm gonna go play some more Palworlds right now, actually. And I'll see you all later.